Hey everyone, I'm Coral. Welcome back to my channel. I'm here today with all the books that I finished this month in March. It was a month of ups and downs. Okay, so my stats that I like to do, of course, first. In total, I read 12 books, and of those 12 books, 6 were books that I owned previous to this year, so those are books that I count as like being on my TBR, so that's good. I reread one book. One book was an ARC copy. One book I got from the library, and one I got as a program I'm doing with Libra FM right now, so I will tell you about that when I get to that book. In total, I read 5,248 pages, which is about 169 pages a day. I did listen to quite a few audiobooks this month. So I have this goal for the year to read, I think, oh gosh, I can't even remember what I gave myself as a goal. I think it was 40,000 pages. So if it was 40,000 pages, I think it is. At this point, I've whittled that goal down to 31,178. And then if I subtract what I read this month, I have 25,930 pages left to read to my goal. So I'm almost halfway there. The genres I read this month, 5 were horror, 1 was more like paranormal, 4 were fantasy, 1 was a thriller, and 1 was like a nonfiction history book. The years these came out, the oldest one was published in 1988, then I had a book from 1990, a book from 2001, 1 from 2005, 2 from 2018, 1 from 2019, 1 from 2020, 1 from 2021, and then 3 books that have been or will be released this year, 2022. I'm also keeping track of the series that I'm reading. I started 3 new series this month, but they're series where the second book is not out yet. So it's not exactly like I'm jumping into a series that's like 7 books long already, you know what I mean? So that's good because I'm not very good at reading series. But 3 other series I read this month are books where I'm continuing on with the series. So that's good. I'm getting through the series. I'm almost there. One's a reread though, so I don't know if that counts. It doesn't matter. I'm just making these rules up for myself anyways. The audience range for these, 11 were adult, 1 was YA, and then I read 1 ebook, 4 I read as audiobooks, 7 of them were physical, 11 of them were novels, and 1 was a novella. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the 2 books here that I don't have like a physical representation of first, because otherwise I forget about them. I have problems. So the first book I'm going to talk about today is Grave Peril by Jim Butcher, and this I borrowed from the library. It was an audiobook, and this is the 3rd book, I believe, in the Dresden Files, which I'm trying to get into, and I haven't like super loved them, but like they're entertaining, you know what I mean? I think my biggest problem is that I don't really love Harry Dresden, who is the main character, and he's like a wizard PI. So he's a wizard and he seems to attract a lot of problems. So this book in particular, I can't get into much of like the backstory because, you know, it is a series, but this one kind of dealt more with like ghosts and vampires, which was okay. I have to say this is my least favorite one that I've read so far, and a lot of it is because in the book, Harry keeps referring to this thing that like happened in the past, but he keeps referring to it like it was something that we as the audience was there for and we weren't. So it really confused me. I actually checked 2 separate times to make sure that I was reading the 3rd book and not the 4th book, because I thought maybe I accidentally skipped the 3rd book and then that stuff had happened in the 3rd book. So it really just threw off my reading experience, I think. And it was hard to get into, and I don't know. I know a lot of people really love vampire stuff, and I guess I used to too, but as I've gotten older and been exposed to more vampire stuff, whether it's like TV shows or books or movies or anything, I just feel like there has to be something new introduced if I'm reading something about vampires, or there has to be, you know, something that makes it special. Otherwise, it's just fine. And that's how I felt about this. It was just fine. Like, it wasn't the worst book I've ever read, but definitely not a favorite. I'm hoping the fourth book is better. We'll have to see. And then the second book was And Then I Woke Up by Malcolm Devlin. This I got as an ARC from NetGalley, and this was a short read. I think it was just under 200 pages, so it's, you know, novella length, and this really had an interesting premise, and it dealt a lot with the character's perception of things, but I'm not sure how in-depth I should go about that, so I'm probably safer not talking too much about it. But in this book, we're following a character named Spence, and he's in some sort of like, almost like an inpatient center, and he's a survivor of this sort of like zombie apocalypse, but it's got something special about it that I think you're better off reading about rather than me telling you about, you know, for the sake of your enjoyment of the novel. And it's not very long, so like, I don't want to give too much away, but this, I don't know, I didn't love this. I guess I don't have a lot to say about it. Otherwise, I would have just done like a separate review of it since I got it as an ARC, but like, I don't want to put out like a full review where I'm like, I don't have much to say about it. That's just how I feel. I didn't feel particularly connected to the characters. Like I said, the idea was really interesting, but I don't know, I wish I just would have gotten more of it maybe. And there was one character that I really liked, Layla. The thing about it though is that you don't really know anything about her, so it was like she was just kind of a tag along for the majority of the story, and then we get the backstory, and that's when she became interesting, but that was at the end of the book, so it's like I don't know, I didn't feel like I got to know the characters very well and then spend enough time with them after I felt like I knew them. I don't know, it was fine. I didn't love it, unfortunately. That one is coming out next month, so you can look for it then. Go through some of the ones that I'm not gonna give full reviews on, I guess, because, well, these two are going to be in a trope video next month, so I'll talk about them more in depth then. But the first one is The School by Ed Kelleher and Harriet Vidal, I don't know. And this is about like a boarding school in Maine, a girls' boarding school where there's some spooky stuff happening. I also read Inspection by Josh Malerman, and I have some thoughts about it. I'll get into it when I do my trope video, but this is about a tower where only boys live and they don't know that girls exist. So those two will be included in my trope video next month, where I'll talk more in depth about like dark academia settings in horror. As for Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes, this I did a full review on. If you'd like to watch that, that's in a separate video. I'll try to remember to leave a clicker when I post this. And same with Road to Bones by Christopher Golden. I did a full separate review on that. Then I read The Atlas 6 by Olivie Blake, and this, I actually just picked up the physical copy last night at Barnes & Noble because I happened to be there and it happened to be there, and it was like we locked eyes from across the aisle. And so I really liked this. So this is a fantasy series. This is another like dark academia book. I'm surprised I'm not sick of those by now because I've read like 5 in the past couple months, if not more, maybe more, I don't know. The reason I picked this up is because I was accepted into this program that LibreOfN does where they give, I guess, influencers. I don't know. I don't feel like that title sits above my portrait, but apparently it does in this sense. But I was able to pick from a couple different audiobook copies in exchange, of course, for talking about them, which I'm doing now. And this month, this one was the only one that really called to me. So I picked The Atlas 6 by Olivie Blake, and the audiobook was really fun, I think, because it had like a full cast, like each different character has their own narrator, and sometimes I don't like that. And I think I don't like that when it's like a full cast and also like dramatization sounds, you know, like spaceships or sword fighting or like people walking up the stairs and doors closing. I don't know. I don't need all those extra sound effects, but, and also at first it kind of threw me off just because there were quite a few viewpoints that were following like right away. And so everyone has a different voice too. So it's like I'm trying to not just like match the name up to who's doing what, but also the voice up to who's doing what and all this stuff. So it was a little confusing at first, but I think it really added to the story having each character have their own narrator. And this is about these 6 young people who are chosen to be part of this, it's kind of a competition. They're chosen to be fighting for a spot to be inducted into this secret society called the Alexandrian Society, and it's supposed to be like the people who have kept the Library of Alexandria alive and well and have protected it. So they're going to be protecting the moving hidden secret library of Alexandria, and one person unfortunately will not be inducted into the society at the end of their, I don't know, internship kind of, I don't know. Each person does like have a different sort of ability. Like there are empaths and telepaths and people who can physically move things and people who can see through illusion, and there's just all sorts of very interesting different I wouldn't necessarily say magic, but it's kind of magic-y. It's more like special abilities, I think, rather than spells, you know what I mean? But I ended up really enjoying this, and I found out that this was a book that was independently published, I think last year, and then it was picked up by a big publishing company, by Tor, which makes sense. This is a very Tor-like book. Oh, and this has pictures. Oh man, I didn't realize that. Okay, so I'm gonna have to look at the pictures some other time, but this was a really great book, and in particular, I really enjoyed the audiobook. I'll also leave my Libro.fm referral code in my description if you'd like to check that out. Libro.fm is like Audible. It's the same price, except for instead of buying a book from Amazon, you're buying a book from an indie store of your choosing, which I vastly prefer, as you might imagine. So yeah, it's a pretty cool program, and I was really lucky to be accepted into their ALC program. I'm so excited about that. So next, this is part of the reason why my page count was so high this month, but this isn't a book that I read in a month. This is a book that I've been listening to on audio for quite a while. This is The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. This is the first book in the Wheel of Time series, and this is a book that I was listening to before bedtime every night for quite some time. I don't know how long, and this is just, I don't know. I don't mean typical in a bad way, I guess, when I say it, but this is a really typical fantasy book. Very Tolkien-esque, I feel like. A lot of things that are very much like The Hobbit or Fellowship of the Ring, the way they feel at least, which is not uncommon, I guess. I don't think that that's a bad thing. It was very reminiscent of that. So this is about a group of young people from this small town, and they were all born around the same time. They're about, I think, like 16 years old, and they find out that they might have a bigger purpose in life than just being small village folk, and they have to make a journey to the Eye of the World and try to save the world from the Dark One, the Dark Man. I can't remember what they call him. Shit. Fuck. I don't know. The Dark One. Everyone has strange names. I can't remember what the name for the bad dude is, even though I just, I don't know. Anyways, there is a bad guy and a chosen one, and, ow, my hip just cracked. I don't think it was bad. It just was very typical, but I enjoyed my time with it. So I am going to continue on with the series and listen to the books before bedtime for approximately 3 minutes every night. And then I have to rewind a bunch to find where I am, and I forget stuff and have to re-listen to it a million times, especially with a book like that where there's a lot of things going on and a lot of people, but that's okay. I made it through and I liked it. All right, next I'd love to tell you about The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs by Steve Brusatte. This is a nonfiction history book about the history of the dinosaurs, and this was a really enjoyable book for me. I don't know, I just really like dinosaur stuff. Still, I don't know. It seems like such a 5-year-old child thing, but it's just really interesting, and I enjoyed this book. I think that the author really liked to talk about famous paleontologists he's met, but also he's a paleontologist, and I get it, like this is a passion, has been a passion of his for as long as he can remember, so it's got to be really exciting to meet like your childhood heroes and be able to work with them, but it was a lot of name dropping and stuff like that. So, I mean, you just kind of have to get through it, and it's fine. I thought it was okay. There's lots of photographs in here. I thought it was really informative. I learned some new things, and it was a really good nonfiction read. I'm glad that I read this. This was my 5-star prediction, and it was, I guess, for all intents and purposes, a 5-star read. Next, another book I absolutely desperately loved this month. This is The Raptor and the Wren by Wendig. This is the 5th book in the Miriam Black series, and there's only one more book left until I'm done. And again, this just leaves on such a really terrible, I don't know, it just like makes you upset, and then it's like, we're done, and I wish it wasn't the case. So I can't wait to get the 6th book finally. Let's see. The premise of this series is that Miriam Black can tell someone's death. She sees someone's death if she touches their skin. And it's gotten her into a lot of trouble. And it's kind of traumatic. And she's just trying to get by. It's such a great series, though. I also read a book that is missing a dust jacket. This was a reread for me. This is Eldest, which is the 2nd book in the Aragon series by Christopher Paolini. And, you know, I think if I were coming to this series for the first time, I would not really love these books, but I do find like an immense amount of joy rereading them. It's just like a comfort read, you know what I mean? So that I listened to on audiobook. The narrator's okay. He does the job, I guess, but he's not like super spectacular, so I don't know. I don't know if I enjoy it any more or less than reading it myself, but it was okay. And then lastly, this giant tome, which I had this idea quite a few months ago, but it's taken me some time to find a book that will work well with this idea. So I have this idea of, before a sequel and a book comes out, I can make a video full of spoilers, very detailed, basically summarizing the book, and then you can watch that. And you don't have to reread this giant fucking book right before the sequel comes out, because I'll tell you everything you should be remembering for the next book. This was definitely a weird experience because I had to focus a lot on being able to summarize things to where like it's not too long, but also detailed. So it was different. This is Empire of the Vampire, of course, by Kristoff, and this is the first book in, I don't know how many books are going to be in this series, but it was a very fucking long book, and I liked this for the most part. I thought it was a really interesting vampire book, and it takes place in like an old-timey setting, which I enjoy. There's like a monastery and stuff like that, which I enjoy, even as like a person who, I don't know, I'm just not religious, you know, and I don't love reading about religious-y things for the most part, but this was, it just fit into the story so well. I don't think this story would have been the same without it. Anyways, this is about this guy, Gabriel. He's a silver saint, which is an order that they've had to put together to help fight vampires because there are vampires and they will eat your fucking face off, right? So this is all about him and his life. It's basically an interview that he's giving, which kind of threw me off at first. I don't know if I love like the interview type of thing, but I mean, it was very much like The Name of the Wind, which I did like, but it was very similar to that setup actually. However, Gabriel kind of likes to switch around in the time of his story, of his life, you know what I mean? Like, he's like, oh, and this was when I was here, and then we go to the future, and then we go like 5 years back, but then we go way back to when I was a kid, and it's like, could you just tell one fucking story, Gabriel, please? But he doesn't, of course. But I mean, that didn't take away from the story. It was just kind of a personal thing that I didn't love. But overall, I thought it was a really interesting book, and I'm glad that I read it, and it was fun to put together this summary for everyone, and I really hope that when I put it all together and film it, that it's cohesive and good. I guess we'll just have to see when the time comes. So that is what I read this month. Of course, I'd love to know if you've read any of these and what you thought about them. I'd love to hear from you guys. What else? I have, of course, a list with my bookshop affiliate page if you want to find these books quickly and easily and buy them through bookshop. I make lists of like everything I read. So there's that. There's a Scribd referral, which gives you 2 free months, I believe, and gives me a free month. For sure, I put that, whether or not it's 1 or 2 months, I put that in the description. So I just don't want to check it right now, honestly. That's it. So thank you all so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Goodbye.